We can count them down right about now as we were down to just 10 days before the college football season for the University of Miami gets underway. It's your boy, John Michael, State of Miami Live, as we do each and every day right here on Caneswear TV, right here live on Caneswear TV. Thank you to Brett and the team over at Caneswear as they bring you all of the podcasts here on Caneswear TV. We had a little double dose of us last night. It was Brad and I alongside with Marsh and Mondo all popped on. We kind of did our season preview last night. That's up there. If you want to read Alex Dono, guess what? You can go on the Caneswear app right now. It's absolutely free to download the app. We're going to put a QR code up here for you directly. When we put the QR code up, you will get 10% off on your next order at Caneswear, and also stuff like Alex Dono's article up absolutely free at Caneswear right now. Appreciate everybody that's listening, everybody that's liking and subscribing the channel. We're having great success here in the first week plus on the State of Miami. A lot to dive into today. We've kind of gone throughout the entire roster except the back seven of the football team. We'll get into what's going on in the back seven of the football team. I could argue right now that defensive backfield might be just equal to running back as far as the best position group on this entire football team. So you got some guys coming up right now that are going to be fantastic for this team. It's an amazing turnaround where they've been. 10 days to go, though. 10 days to go is where we're at right now. 10 days away from opening up the season in Palo Alto, California, against the Stanford Cardinal, a team that, quite frankly, you should mop the floor with. But as Mario Cristobal says all the time, we are on a mission for 1-0. We're on a mission for 1-0, and this team needs to get better. Before we get into any of that, though, I'm starting today actually doing some college football conversation, not just Miami related. We spent a little bit of time on this last week, but I think it's very fascinating right now to see what's going on across college football and the state of the union, not the state of the U or the state of Miami, the state of the union, everything that's going on there. Dave, appreciate the love. We had a lot of fun with the show last night with Marsh and with Mondo and obviously with Brad and myself. The state of college football is in flux. There was a judge's ruling last week, and we even mentioned this on this program. Would you bring back a Jack Pyburn or a Daquan Wright? And quite frankly, I bounced back and forth in my mind what I would do. You know, as a college football coach, I think it's very easy for me to say, hey, here's what Mario Cristobal should do or what Mario Cristobal might think. And for Mario Cristobal, maybe he thinks a certain way. I've not heard him address one way or the other. Would you go out and bring a guy back that was in the NFL? But I think for the sanctity of college football, we've really reached a breaking point this offseason. The crap that happened with Brendan Sorsby back in the day was absolutely ridiculous. The fact that, you know, this guy got caught gambling, Texas Tech went to a judge said he could play. You basically had the whole Big 12 and a lot of people across college football say, hey, if this guy ends up playing, we're out. Like, we're not dealing with this anymore. We're not going to schedule Texas Tech at all. And I think the groundswell of support there actually got that moved along, which was fantastic. The second part, and I agree with Money Making Mitch on this one, it absolutely has to stop that random judges are deciding college football rules. Look, I've been anti-NCAA for a long time. I think they're a toothless, gutless organization that, quite frankly, you have people that are making a ton of money up here, and they pick and choose who they want to go after. Was Miami the only team in the 1980s that might have been circumventing the situation with a Pell Grant scandal that we were doing or maybe a pay-for-play model? No, we absolutely weren't. Was SMU the only school that potentially was out there writing checks on company letterhead and sending it out with their own signatures? No, they weren't. But what happened was SMU and Miami were schools that didn't fit in that box that everybody liked, and the NCAA said, hey, we got to find we can't beat these dudes on the field. We're going to find a way to hammer them off the field. Fast forward, was Reggie Bush and his family the only group that allegedly was getting a house rented to them by USC? No. I mean, let's be real. Everybody was doing it. You go back and watch the 30 for 30, the Marcus Dupree, the best there never was, or the best there ever was, whatever it was called, where he was getting recruited out of some little small town in Mississippi, and they showed video of the 1970s of people lined up at the one hotel that was in town, and they all had their pitch. And a lot of it had to do with a duffel bag full of cash or a Camaro or a Trans Am or whatever was cool at the time. And you know what? the NCAA kind of looked the other way. Fast forward, what we dealt with the Nevis Shapiro scandal. You're talking about a guy that was giving kids Benihana's dinners and taking them on yacht parties. But suddenly we were the poster child for the worst thing that ever happened in college football. So my point to that, to get back to where we are today, is the NCAA has always picked and choose what they wanted to do. But there always was a sanctity to a point about college football. You always had rules. Yeah, were teams coloring outside the lines and buying Dodge Chargers and everything else, allegedly, at some of these SEC schools? Yeah, they were. But the NCAA didn't care, because the main points of interest in college football were going to be, hey, 3 years out of high school before you can go to the NFL. That rule was locked in, and Mike Williams tried to fight it, and he lost, and that was it, okay? So that was number one. You had the sanctity of, if you gambled, you were suspended a lot of times from college, and maybe you were never allowed to come back. That was never going to be questioned. Yet suddenly in the last couple of years, NFL, transfer portal, different things, that you look at, people have decided to challenge them. And what they've done is go, hey, if little Timmy can't get his own way with the NCAA rules, we're going to run to a judge in our hometown, and we're going to have them overturn it. And they're going to put a temporary restraining order out there and everything. And look, I'm a Miami guy. We all know this. Slippery slope. What we did with Darian Mensah, I know a lot of people got upset about. Now, we didn't necessarily break any rules. Darian Mensah, whatever may have happened, there was a settlement. That's how that all went away. I wasn't always in favor of the recruiting portion of the transfer portal, but it became a fact of life in the game that we all know and love. And with it being a fact of life in the game that we all know and love, you had to adapt to it. The best coaches, see a Kirby Smart, see a Ryan Day, see a Mario Cristobal, they've adapted to, hey, I'm going to recruit, and then I'm going to augment my team with transfer portal kids, and I'm going to go from there. What's happening right now, and I've heard this described as a one-off, and it truly should be just a one-off. You've changed your rules where it's now going to be 5 years to play 5 years of college football. That's all fine and dandy. But now, well, we got to make little Timmy, who played all of his years and is exhausted his eligibility and wants to go to the NFL. Oh, by the way, he's not good enough to make the NFL, so now he's going to run back to college. And where is this primarily happening? Kids that want to go to LSU and follow Lane Kiffin. Some of them were Ole Miss kids. Daquan Wright, they had the big defensive tackle that I think on Carson Beck's touchdown run ended up on his hands and knees because we took him to the ground, and that was going to be it. But it came to a point today where the adults had to be adults. And I was waiting for this out of Greg Sankey out of the SEC, to be honest with you. The first thing I was thinking of was Greg Sankey in the SEC. You're the big swinging Johnson in all of this. How about you decide we're not going to let kids that have played in the NFL come back? Well, they had their meeting or teleconference or Zoom call, whatever they did last night, and they kind of said they weren't in favor of it, yet they didn't really want to enforce it. What looks like as today, Tony Petitti and the Big Ten have got their approval down. And I'm looking at Pete Thamel's latest tweet that's just out there. The Big Ten rule will ban NFL players from playing at Big Ten schools, has been unanimously approved by Big Ten athletic directors, and there's going to be a Big Ten FAR vote in process to formally establish the conference rule. Guess what? The first person that comes out and says this is the Big Ten. I've also seen reports today that the ACC, where Miami plays, the Big 12, are probably going to adopt this same rule sooner rather than later. And then it's going to leave the SEC to figure out what they were going to do. My only question with this, and here's the tweet from Pete Thamel showing exactly that. The Big Ten is saying, we're putting our foot down and this isn't going to happen. And what I like is it is unanimous. In the SEC, could you make it unanimous? Because I can promise you, LSU, because the judge in Louisiana has approved this, you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to tell these players, no, sir. And I agree. Little Timmy, going back to the NCAA, it's not for you. This isn't Van Wilder, the movie. Like, I think you guys may remember Van Wilder, the movie. He was like a seventh-year senior until his dad found out that he was actually paying for school, and he goes, I'm going to cut him off. And then all of a sudden, Van wanted to graduate. If you weren't good enough to go to the NFL, you should have worked a little harder. Look, the NFL is not for everybody. So 1% of 1% of 1% makes it to the National Football League. But when have we become an institution of college football where we coddle kids that don't get their way? There are many kids that graduate, that go to an NFL camp, and guess what? 25 days into training camp, they get cut, and then they go play arena ball, or they go play in the XFL or the USFL, or they go play in Canada, or they find somewhere else to go out and play. And you're exactly right. The NFL is not for long. The average tenure of service in the NFL is less than 3 years. Less than 3 years. And I agree, Cliff. Every conference should stop this. And it's going to take, obviously, what you need to have happen is the SEC and the Big Ten to get together. The Big Ten taking the step. Little brothers, ACC and Big 12 are going to follow. And now you're going to leave pressure on the SEC. Because you know how you can pressure teams like LSU? If you're Clemson, you say, hey, we play them in the opener. If they play these kids that we deem ineligible, we're going to challenge this game. Now what do? Now, is it a chicken bleep way to do it? Absolutely. But sometimes you got to put your foot down and do what's right or what's wrong for college football. And it's interesting because my show asked me a question this morning directly, and it gets to the University of Miami, as we obviously are 10 days away from the opener. They said, you mean to tell me if there was a player who could come back that could start and could help Miami right now, you wouldn't take him? And honestly, all I care about is Miami winning. Let's be real. Miami winning is one of the biggest things that matters to me. But do I want to potentially destroy the game that I love over bringing in a tight end? I use Daquan Wright because his name is out there. Could he start at Miami? Very likely. I don't want to say very likely. He could absolutely come in and compete to be our starting tight end. He had the touchdown that Ole Miss thought was going to send them to the national title game until they got Carson Beck on the last drive. That kid gave us problems in the second half last year in the Fiesta Bowl against Ole Miss. But part of me on the flip side goes, what would I want if that's my son on the football team? Because they said, oh, you know what? If it's player 105, who cares? Who cares if player 105 gets cut loose? It's not just player 105. So what happens now if it's Gavin Mueller and it's Elijah Lofton and any one of the other tight ends that are in the room with us? And they have bust their ass since January. Since our season ended against Indiana, they have bust their ass to become number one or become number two when it comes to the depth chart. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to bring a kid in. And let's be real. If you're bringing a kid in, you are promising him right now that he is going to be your starting player at whatever position. Daquan Wright's not going to LSU to compete for a job. It's his job, and it's his job to lose. He's going to have to absolutely screw himself over to lose it. How do I walk into that tight end room and say, you know, all the times you guys have been on Green Tree, all the times you guys may have done private workouts on a beach, or you were pulling sleds somewhere, or in 99-degree weather in South Florida, you guys were out here on a July afternoon catching the ball, doing work on the jugs machine, working on the blocking sled. How do I tell that kid if I'm a head coach, appreciate your effort, bro, but this ain't your year? Appreciate your effort, but you're not my starting tight end anymore. If I'm a parent there, I'm livid. And again, life isn't fair. God knows every one of us is going to find out in time. Life isn't fair. Things that you think are going your way won't always go your way. I tell my kids this all the time. Life isn't fair. You got to go in and bust your ass. But if you've done your job and you've worked your ass off and you've earned a starting job, you're supposed to start at Stanford. How do I look one of those kids in the eye? And I think our head coach has different integrity than the coach down at LSU. I could be wrong, but I haven't heard Mario say one way or the other whether he'd go after it. It's the first time in my life I'll actually agree with Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. He was like, nah, we're good. How does it look? It's not kid 105 that I may take a scholarship from. It might be kid 23 on my roster. And how do I now look at 1 through 22 on my roster and say, work your ass off, but this kid's coming in to take your job? We have a real problem with that. Here's a good thing. Download the Caneswear app right about now. It's absolutely free in the Apple or the Android store. You should have an Apple. Whoever's got the Android on our group chat, we're going to have to do something with you guys. But QR code right up there. It's absolutely free. You're going to get 10% off your next order. Make sure you download, like, and subscribe to Caneswear TV on YouTube. We have content all day, every day. We had the Raskeller report on yesterday. Max and Mike were on right after Brad and I. We've got all kinds of stuff coming up. Benny and the boys will be on tomorrow as they normally are. We have got Miami Mayhem coming up today. Like literally, there was just so many different things on Caneswear TV as we are growing this almost day by day at this point. One of the things we want to do, and I want you guys to jump in the chat for this, I could argue right now that defensive back is just as good as running back on this team. I argued that running back was maybe the greatest group in the country for the running back position. I now start to think in the defensive backfield, we've got a very good chance for that to be the case as well. I think our defensive back and our back seven could be as good as any. Speaking of which, I wanted to throw this up. We're going to put the graphic up. On Three put out their preseason freshman All-American team. And it goes to our line, what we have to say about defensive backfield and how good it can be. I'd argue right now that defensive back will be the best group on the team when we talk about corners. But now you add another young defensive back, and we had two guys on the freshman All-American team, Jackson Cantwell, who may not even be starting right now. We'll find out in about 10 days, is he the starting guard or tackle or wherever he may be? And J.J. Dunnigan, who I'm sure is not going to start at DB, but I think he could be Bryce Fitzgerald-like with the way he can make an impact coming off the bench. So you look at our corners. We are 4 deep of starting cornerback quality guys in the defensive backfield. You got Xavier Lucas, O.J. Frederick, Damari Brown, and Ethan O'Connor. All 4 of those guys could start at just about any place in the country. We have all 4 of them. Now you add at safety. Camden Portis, obviously being a kid there as well, at defensive back. I know Jabari Antoine is dealing with injury. I'm pretty sure he is done, if not for the entire year. I don't know that it's been announced officially yet, but he's definitely on the outside looking in. Point being, you've got 4 legitimate corners. Now you look at safety. Jeremiah Poyser, fantastic. You bring in Omar Thornton, who I think is going to play some nickel and some safety. Bryce Fitzgerald, freshman All-American last year. And now you add in J.J. Dunnigan, who everything that I have seen and read and watched on this kid, he may be the best of all of them. He just as a freshman is one of the things that could be huge for him. You look at this defensive backfield, what they transformed from 2 years ago to where they are today, and they become one of the strengths of this football team. Look, losing Jacoby Thomas and obviously losing our guy Keontae Scott are going to be huge. And I don't think that can be undersold. Like we spent all offseason, Gio, talking about Bain and Mesidor and how do you replace Bain and Mesidor. I'd argue on the back end of our defense, Keontae Scott and Jacoby Thomas were just as important. Like you think about when Keontae was hurt those last couple of games of the year, you didn't quite get that same efficiency coming off the edge where you would send some of those blitz packages that you saw last year with Keontae Scott. Those guys, I love to call them crash outs. It's something the kids call. Those were 2 dudes that would come up and knock the ever-loving crap out of you, and it felt like they enjoyed the pain themselves. Like you would see Jacoby Thomas doing this and Keontae Scott crashing out after they knocked the living shit out of somebody. And that's what I need out of my defensive backfield. Now, I think Omar Thornton can produce some of that. He is absolutely a crash out in the best way possible. He's going to be a guy that comes in, puts his head in the ground. He's going to absolutely make some tackles. The question is, can he bring me that same blitz package that Keontae Scott brought me? I remember I was on with maybe Texas A&M radio last year before the game, and they were asking me, hey, we know about Bain, we know about Mesidor. Give me somebody in the defensive backfield we better watch for. And here's Jacoby Thomas. As Mark Jones would say, he said, I looked at my wrist, I got time today, and he ran C.J. Bailey's ass over getting into the end zone. What an unbelievable play. And that really felt to me like the turning point of the season. It was 3-0. I think they had got a 4th down stop on us. We get an immediate pick 6 after that and to the house, and it's over with. You wonder now, can somebody become that Keontae Scott, Jacoby Thomas enforcer? Zachariah Poyser, good player. I liked what I saw last year. I like Jacoby Thomas just a little bit better. And again, it's not a knock on Poyser. He gets that second year in the system. He's got an absolute Ed Reed-like playmaker next to him in Bryce Fitzgerald. You're talking about a kid that burst onto the scene and just made plays when you needed them. You just made different plays. But again, going back to Keontae Scott, who becomes the guy that can come off that edge? Because remember, Key would walk up and you wouldn't know, is he blitzing? Is he a guy that's dropping into coverage? I think this year, Corey Heatherman, with the amount of defensive backs we have, has even more ability to disguise and do different things. If a team's throwing the ball a bunch, we could easily see 6 defensive backs on the field. You could go dime package, rock one of these safeties down into a nickel spot, bring one of these corners in. Can Damari Brown become a blitzer? The other guys feel like they're more outside guys. Every now and then, I think O.J. Frederick could come in and do some blitz stuff. But you're talking about guys that you have turned this from an absolute weakness a couple of years ago. Nothing against Mish Powell. I know he had a big pick 6 against against Wake Forest. But you got a kid now like Bryce Fitzgerald. You got Mo Toure, who almost killed himself. But you think about it, in the Texas A&M game, he comes up with a pick. He's got a couple of picks, or I know he had at least one pick against Florida State. And that one he almost took back to the house if he would have made one block. He also made plays down the field. Like, those are guys that you're going to have. And then obviously the play against Texas A&M, which is one of the great plays of all time. The only thing the defensive backfield has to work on this year is catching the damn ball. If you go back and watch that Ole Miss game a year ago, we dropped minimum 2 or 3 interceptions to where that never should have been a fourth quarter game. If you want to be honest with you, that game never should have come down to a fourth quarter drive and we just come up with a pick. Right before the end of the half, was it Dylan Day? He has a pick six hit him in the hands, and he catches that. It's pick six. It's 24-13 at halftime. And I'm going to tell you now, Ole Miss is in big trouble if they were going to have to do that. You know, you were going to be sideways. So these guys got to figure out how to come up with interceptions. National title game, you had perfect back shoulder fade technique. And I think it was OJ drops the interception in the end zone. He played the ball better than the Indiana receiver and couldn't come up with it. So those guys just need to find different things to get it done. I know Ethan O'Connor got a lot of crap. I mean, a whole lot of crap for how he played. You see some of the highlights here. This was the one I think that you should have had the interception. You should have. Yep, that one should have been picked in the end zone. Instead, it turns into points. You had many times where they had blanket coverage. I thought in that first half of the national title game, because of the injury and suspension to Xavier Lucas, and that was a Bush League pass interference call. It's absolute garbage sitting there. But I think Corey Heatherman played off a whole bunch because he realized, I didn't have all of my horses. This year, he's going to have all of his horses. And as long as players can stay healthy, you're going to have guys up front that can eat, and it's going to make this defensive backfield just absolutely fantastic. Look, you're not going to play a quarterback like Fernando Mendoza either. I have to give him credit. I didn't think when I saw him at Cal he was that good of a quarterback. When I saw him in the national title game last year, he had grown leaps and bounds. They made it very easy for him, and he got things done. Now, the one group that I do have a little bit of trepidation with would happen to be the linebacker core. And we talked about these some with Brad and I the other day, some of the depth that you have at linebacker. Mo Toure is going to be the guy. He is going to be your leader. And let's be honest, in another year or two, guys like Mo Toure will not be on this football team because you're going to have 5 years to get things done. Mo Toure becomes that guy. Chase Smith is a redshirt senior, steps into a role now where maybe the body and everything else is going to match up, and he can go out and play to the ability that we think he is going to be. Kellen Wiley, redshirt freshman, another kid that's going to get a chance to go out there and play. But I do like what you see with this right now, where your defensive backfield, now go back to a guy like J.J. Dunnigan, he feels like he's big enough that in certain situations you can rock him into a backer role and allow him to go out and cover. Make sure, again, you like and subscribe to follow myself, follow the Canesburg television content, all the shows that we're going to have on throughout. I've got the daily show Monday through Friday from 1 to 1:30. We've got stuff all throughout the evenings and nighttime, and it's only going to get better as the season gets closer. Again, 10 days to go. Wanted to throw up another graphic, something I saw, and I think this was David Hale, may have put this tweet out there. Went out and put the beat writers for every ACC team to give their best and worst. We did a ceiling and a floor for Miami. And I think most of us think the floor right now is going to be 10-2. Bobby Pruitt could be another guy as well that could be out there. Look, you got some options at linebacker. But here is what they had to say. And I'm trying to see who represented Miami. Adam Lichtenstein from the Sun Sentinel. His pick is 11-1. David Hale picks us to go 10-2. So 11-1, 10-2. I say the absolute floor is 10-2. Absolute floor. And when I say floor, that would be you lose at Clemson and at Notre Dame. There's not another game on this schedule, quite frankly, that I look at that even gives me any pause that you're going to lose these games. But you think about Miami being 11-1. You're in the playoffs. 10-2, suddenly, and that could be it. Adam is a Gator, so that could be a problem why he does pick us 11-1. So I think I'll be real. I think too many people are just penning in a loss at Notre Dame. Like, what are we doing here? Is Notre Dame going to be a good football team? Absolutely. But to just pen us in, I don't know that I've seen a publication. I think Brad Crawford of CBS Sports may be the only one that picked us undefeated to be there. I saw somebody else had, I think it was Pro Football or College Football News. Pete Futak had his thing. He put the playoffs. He had us as the 3rd seed or at the 4th seed at 11-2. He had us winning the ACC championship game, but losing 2 games in the regular season. And again, I ask where? Could you lose at Clemson? If Clemson circles back and Deshaun Watson, maybe, or Trevor Lawrence or Travis Etienne, one of those guys, get some stuff there. If you circle back there, sure. But why is everybody just penning in a loss at Notre Dame? Like, I get it. Notre Dame's supposed to be good. Did they just replace 2 NFL running backs? Suddenly Notre Dame's just going to plop 2 guys like Jeremiah Love, or was Love not as good as they were hyping him up to be? I don't know. It's Clemson suddenly bringing back the fountain of 5 years ago, because I looked at their roster last year, which is better than the roster they have this year, and they weren't very good. The other teams that have high ceilings, Bill Embody of On3 picks SMU to go 11-1. They have Louisville going 10-2. I have a feeling that's going to be one of the teams. We'll play one of those 2, probably for the ACC championship game, if all goes well. I know we had that graphic up earlier, and I saw the hatred, and it harkens me back to last year. I forgot how much Joey Galloway hated on us. Like, I really forgot going down that playoff stretch how much Joey Galloway, as the selection show was coming around, just kept saying, Notre Dame's better. Look at this metric. Look at that metric. Blah, blah, blah. And he tried to ignore it over and over again. And then we get to the end, and Miami ultimately ends up making it. And now they put out their new poll, Gio. Do we have them talking about why Notre Dame's going to be so good this year and how he kind of craps on Miami again?
As we talk about teams with attitudes and chips on their shoulders and feeling like the world mistreated us last season, there won't be a more pissed off team than Notre Dame with an excellent
Why do you
coach.
say that?
Because they you left them out of the playoff last year. And the way you did it, the way you left them.
What?
Yeah.
Don't even start that. Don't start that.
I'm just saying, the way you kicked them in the nuts right at the end. And you and your people.
I love the Irish.
But I was upset for them. You know what I mean? I was upset for them because of the way the rankings flipped in the very end for Notre Dame. So I know they had an attitude. Skipped the bowl game, just ready to go.
So you think they'll be the most upset team?
I think that when we talk about pissed off, we talk about Georgia, Ohio State being pissed off. Well, Clemson. You can combine that and squish it all together. Okay. And Notre Dame will have all that beat in attitude and chip on shoulder and ready to go.
Look, I understand where he's coming from. They also cowered and ran away. They wanted to be pissed off. They could have took it out on Georgia Tech in a bowl game. I love the fact that he said the way you did it, like Kirk Herbstreit did it. No, the problem was he was jock riding Notre Dame for so long, and he forgot the number one thing about what football is about. It's about in between the white lines, playing the game. I don't give a shit about your metrics. I don't care about your strength of schedule. I know when one played one, the team in the orange and green won. We won the game. And it was simple. The way they went about it, I agree with Joey Gallo. I thought it was stupid. Miami never should have been 9 spots behind Notre Dame at the end. Guess what? November 7th, don't sing it, bring it, you little Irish wimps. Ain't nobody afraid of you. I will be there. I cannot wait to be up there and see what happens there. But point to that, why everybody keeps penning us a loss for them, I have no idea. I guess everybody's afraid to just say, hey, Miami is that damn good. But guess what? We might have the best defensive backfield in the entire country. We may have the best running back room in the entire country. I love our quarterback. I love our wide receivers. I know our lines of scrimmage are going to be fantastic. I cannot wait 10 more days to start kicking ass and taking names and settling on the field. To quote Mario Cristobal, we were 1-0 today on the show. I feel like we went 1-0. We did exactly what we needed. Like and subscribe, Caneswear TV, right now on the Caneswear channel, on YouTube. Download the Caneswear app. It is absolutely free. You'll get 10% off your next order. I just ordered 3 new green shirts. Guess what? This time next week, I hope the new Adidas are in. I know they're coming soon. I'll be ordering some of those. We're getting game day ready. You don't want to wait. You don't want to wait till game day and all of a sudden you can't get your shipment on time if you happen to be out of state like I am. Get to Caneswear right now. Thanks to Gio producing this thing, making sure everything looks fine and dandy. Thanks to Brett and his crew back for Caneswear. Till tomorrow, guys. Go Canes.